55 minutes since the sanction, and the names are already fading like smoke on water. The light above me trembles in rhythm with my pulse, pale, trembling, sanctified. It hums through the iron ribs of the chamber like a living hymn. I can smell burnt oil and copper, and beneath it the faint sweetness of incense, the kind they use to mask the scent of scorched thought. My fingers twitch when I try to lift them, tracing the edge of the restraint slab. The metal is warm, almost merciful. They told me I would wake purified. The word tastes bitter now, like a prayer spoken by someone who has forgotten its meaning. I remember the sound of their voices before the sanction began. Low, ritualistic, each syllable wrapped in reverence. Then the flash of light that wasn't light at all, a color too bright for eyes that still belonged to flesh. I think I screamed, though the memory stutters like a damaged reel. Perhaps it was only the machine breathing for me. There's a pressure in my skull, not pain, more like absence made heavy. I know something enormous was there a moment ago. I can feel the outline of what's missing, the hollow shape where thought used to live. Each breath drags a new void across the inside of my chest. I try to remember why I volunteered for the guard, why I followed the banners, but the words slip like oil through my grasp. I lift my head a fraction. The lumen halo above throws my shadow against the wall. It looks wrong, slightly delayed, as if my body moves but my memory doesn't. Across the chamber, the servitor stands motionless, its optics glowing faint amber. A single auspex cable runs from its skull into the wall, pulsing faintly. Every few seconds, it whispers something in binaric, a prayer, maybe, or a confirmation that I still exist. They said the procedure would erase contamination, heretical recall, they called it. I wasn't supposed to see what I saw on that field. They said memory is infection. That to remember is to invite corruption. But how do you unlearn the sound of men dying with your name on their tongues? The sanction burned the words from my mind, yet my skin still knows their voices. Something lingers under my fingernails, black dust, maybe ash. I keep trying to scrape it away, but it clings. The medicae said residue is normal, that remnants of thought sometimes leave the body through the pores. I didn't ask what happens if they don't. There are moments when the chamber feels alive. I swear I hear breathing that isn't mine, a deep exhale through vents that smell of steel and sanctity. The air tastes recycled, older than me, like it's been used for countless purges before this one. I wonder how many others lay here, whispering the same half-remembered names before the dark took them. A vibration passes through the floor, distant, rhythmic. Perhaps another sanction is beginning in the next cell. The hymn always starts the same way. 6 notes, ascending, like a machine learning to pray. I catch myself humming along before I realize the melody belongs to someone else. 57 minutes perhaps now. The chrono on the wall has no numbers, only a flickering rune counting down to something I can't read. I can feel the emptiness spreading, gentle but sure. It feels like obedience, it feels like sleep. But not yet, not while I can still remember light. The taste of the air changes when I breathe through my teeth. I can't tell if it's blood or sanctified oil that lingers on the back of my tongue. The medicae adepts said there would be side effects, sensory distortions, phantom echoes of things that never were, but I know the difference between false memory and the ache of something real trying not to die. My body remembers before my mind does. My hands still twitch as if gripping a lasgun. My shoulders flinch when the lumen globes buzz too loudly, like I'm waiting for an artillery flash that never comes. Reflex without purpose, that's what remains, of discipline. It's strange, how obedience outlives thought. I keep seeing the moment before the sanction, not as a vision, just a flicker, a fragment caught in the mechanism of my skull. I was sitting in this same chair, wrists bound by iron straps. The psyker stood behind the glass, face obscured by the sanctum mask. I could hear her voice flat, measured, merciful. "Recite your name for record." I obeyed. Then light, white, endless, devouring. They call it thought fire. I think that's the only word that still fits. The room smelled of incense and coolant when it started. Then something burned, maybe hair, maybe faith. A servo skull hovered near my face, its ocular lenses reflecting my own eyes until they vanished in glare. I remember trying to speak as the first surge hit. The words never came out. They dissolved mid-breath, like the sound itself had been judged impure. After that, only fragments. My heartbeat, too slow, voices counting. The Emperor's name repeated, in machine cadence. Memory is burden, faith is clarity. The mantra sank into me like command code. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th repetition, I forgot what it meant. I think that's when they smiled. Now, when I blink, the world flares in afterimages. I can see outlines of faces burned into the air. One might be hers, the Psychers, or perhaps Corvin's, standing at parade rest the night before our last campaign. I can't be sure anymore. The mind replaces what it's told to erase. That's how it survives, they say. I wonder if that makes me heretical already. A droplet of condensation falls from the ceiling onto my chest. It spreads like a tiny wound, cold against the robe they wrapped me in. Beneath it, I can feel the sigil burned into my skin, the mark of excision. The metal still hums faintly, like it's thinking. I touch it with 2 fingers. There's no pain, only a warmth that pulses once, then fades. I try to remember Corvin's voice. He had a calm way of saying my name before a battle, never loud, never angry, just enough to remind me I existed. I repeat it now, under my breath, but the syllables come apart like dust. Maybe I'm saying his instead. Maybe that's all I have left of him, the echo of a sound neither of us remembers. Something clicks inside the wall. The servitor's optics dim to a dull red, and for a moment I think it's watching me breathe. Its vox releases a static sigh, followed by a single word in binaric. Compliant. Then silence. That word settles in my chest like stone. Compliant. That's what I am now, not loyal, not faithful, just compliant. The kind of man who forgets on command. But I still remember light. And the way it screamed when they burned it into me. Continue to next part. The lumen above me flickers again, slower this time, as if the light itself is tiring. Each pulse casts the room in a different shade of forgetting. I can feel the air thinning, the smell of the incense deepening into something metallic. Every breath now tastes faintly of ash, like a candle burned in a tomb that never had names carved above it. They said the sanction would cleanse me of grief. They said memory was a contagion of the soul. But the emptiness it leaves behind feels heavier than any wound. I can sense the outline of the life I used to have, the edges of things I can no longer name, shapes in fog, colors without cause. A few hours ago, or maybe a lifetime, one of the Medicae priests told me that those who endure the sanction sometimes see reflections of their old selves in the walls. Residuals, he called them. Traces of the mind caught in the psychic discharge. I didn't believe him then. Now, as the lumen dims, I think I see movement, shadows twisting against the steel bulkhead, flickering like the film of old hololiths. At first, I think it's the servitor, but the shapes are too human, too familiar. One leans forward, head bowed, hands clasped as if in prayer. The other rests a hand on his shoulder, steady, protective. For a heartbeat, I can almost hear them breathing. Corvin, Tavik. Their names surface like bubbles breaking through dark water, fragile and brief. I whisper them once, afraid that sound itself might destroy them. Corvin Larex, Tavik Mera. The syllables taste like blood and dust, but they're real mine, if only for a moment. I see them as we were, the field shrouded in smoke, the ground shaking beneath orbital fire, Corvin shouting orders through the vox while Tavik laughed at nothing. The laughter echoes through the chamber, faint but pure, and I almost smile. Then the walls breathe again, and they're gone. I reach for the memory, clawing at the edges, but the harder I hold it, the faster it burns. My fingertips tremble as if the air itself scolds me for remembering. The echo fades into a hum, the same hum that fills every sanctioned chamber, the sound of obedience grinding against silence. I lean back, eyes closing, and feel the pattern of the restraint slab against my spine. I wonder how many others pressed their skin into the same grooves, praying for release, for mercy, for sleep. I wonder if they, too, whispered names they were forbidden to keep. There is a new sound, now distant, rhythmic, soft as breathing. Another sanction beginning somewhere beyond these walls. The hum deepens, blending with the faint pulse in my skull. I think of Corvin's hand on my shoulder before the last charge, of Tavik's song echoing through the trenches, and I realize something terrible. I can't remember their faces anymore, only their gestures, their warmth, the cadence of their faith. The light took the rest. The servitor stirs once more, lenses flaring gold as it reads my vital runes. Stability confirmed. It intones, voice devoid of soul. Then quiet again. Stability. The word feels wrong. How can absence be stable? I whisper into the dark. Corvin, Tavik. The names feel thinner, each time, dissolving even as I speak them. Soon, I will not remember why they mattered. Soon, even this sorrow will be a blank prayer. For now, I breathe their ghosts once more and hold the silence like a wound that still bleeds light. The silence afterward is a strange kind of noise, like hearing through cloth, muffled and weightless. Every sound feels distant, remembered through someone else's skull. They warned me this would happen. Residual echo, cognitive static. I think of it instead as ghosts rubbing their shoulders against my thoughts, trying to stay warm before the last of me forgets them. When I close my eyes, I can still see the flashes, not images, sensations. The smell of wet metal after the bombardment, the faint taste of promethium rain on my tongue, the texture of ash settling over skin already too tired to care. Each one tries to form a picture, but the moment it does, the center dissolves, and I'm left with outlines of men I almost knew. The chamber door stands open now. I don't remember it opening. Beyond it, the corridor runs long and narrow, lined with other sealed sanctums. Each door bears a purity seal and a single rune that pulses faintly, like a heartbeat belonging to something asleep. I think of knocking on one, asking if anyone else remembers, but that would mean admitting I do. My legs tremble when I stand. It's not weakness, it's confusion. The floor feels slightly tilted, as if the world has shifted a fraction of its weight. The lumen strips buzz overhead, the light slow and fevered. I take a step toward the door and stop when I hear breathing that isn't mine. It comes from the corner, soft, irregular, uncertain. A man sits there, head bowed, hands shaking. The sanction robes cling to him, soaked with sweat. I recognize the posture before the face. Every sanctioned soldier adopts it when the purge finishes, as though praying to remember what prayer means. He looks up when I move. His eyes are glassy, unfocused, yet they fix on me with something close to recognition. "How long?" he asks. His voice cracks on the second word. 55 minutes, I answer. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear the words out loud again. He nods once. That's when the noise stops. What noise? He opens his mouth as if to answer, but nothing comes. He closes his eyes, exhaling like a confession. When he speaks again, it's not to me. They told me I wouldn't dream anymore. I wait for him to say something else, but he doesn't. His breathing slows until it matches the hum of the lumen strips. Then stillness. I step past him, afraid to touch. The corridor stretches ahead, walls slick with condensation, the air cold enough to numb my teeth. There's a line of scripture etched above each door, the same phrase repeated. Through forgetting we serve, the paint gleams wet, fresh. I trace a letter with my finger and feel warmth under the surface, like the wall. Remembers the brush that marked it. Something moves behind the glass of the next chamber. A hand, pale and shaking, pressed against the inner window. It drags downward, leaving a smear that catches the light. The motion leaves a pattern that my mind tries to read. For a moment, I see it as writing, and then it becomes nothing but streaked condensation. I whisper a name to myself, just to see if I still can. Tavik. The syllables hang in the air, fragile and trembling. I think of his grin, the half song he used to hum between orders, the way he always said he'd never die quietly. The sound fades before I finish remembering. The corridor narrows, the hum deepening, the air turning sweet with incense. I realize I'm walking toward the sound of the machine. toward the place where memory burns itself clean. Every step feels heavier, as though I'm dragging ghosts behind me, ghosts that have started to forget how to follow. The corridor bends once, twice, before opening into a wider vault. The walls sweat condensation, rivulets crawl down the metal like veins on a dying man's hand. In the center stands a single restraint, chair empty now, but still warm. Its straps hang loose, ends blackened from use. The scent of cauterized flesh hangs in the air, softened by incense that fails to hide its purpose. I know this place. My chest tightens with a recognition that the mind refuses to name. I touch the chair, and light blooms behind my eyelids, a white burst, then voices reciting the catechism of cleansing. Through fire of thought, the soul is tempered. Through obedience, the mind is sealed. I feel the vibrations before I hear them, like the room itself remembers screaming. The echoes scatter as quickly as they come, leaving me dizzy. I brace a hand against the console beside the chair. Someone left a parchment strip, tucked beneath the switch, an administratum record, half dissolved by moisture. The ink runs, but 2 words remain clear enough to read. Subject compliant. My handwriting. I don't remember writing it. I shouldn't remember any of this. A sudden rush of air rolls through the chamber, stirring the ashes pooled near the drain. They twist and rise, caught in a cross-current from the vents, forming shapes too fluid to be real. For a breath, they're soldiers again, silhouettes in a storm. I hear boots striking mud, lass fire wickering across rain. A voice shouts orders through the chaos, steady, low, familiar. Corvin. He stands at the trench edge, silhouette against a burning skyline, his hand raised for silence. Hold the line, he says, and even now the command stills me. I can see Tavik beside him, grinning through the smoke, his teeth bright under the rebreather lenses. They'll have to drown us to stop us. He laughs. The sound breaks me. I reach for it, but the vision folds in on itself like paper meeting flame. The air smells of copper again, the hiss of the vents replacing the rain. Only my hand remains extended, fingers trembling in the cold. I speak their names aloud, hoping repetition will anchor them. Corvin Larix, Tavik Mera. The syllables leave my mouth heavy, already losing shape as they travel. The chamber drinks them in, greedy for anything human. My vision swims. For a heartbeat, I think I see Corvin's icon, the small cracked aquila he kept tied to his wrist, but when I blink, it's gone. In its place lies a fragment of glass, polished smooth by handling. I lift it to the lumen light. Inside it, reflections multiply until I can't tell which one is mine. I slip the shard into my pocket. A useless gesture, perhaps, but the motion steadies me. The sanction can burn the memory, but maybe the hand still remembers weight. From somewhere deeper in the sanctum, the hymn begins again. 6 notes, ascending, metallic. The same melody that played before my excision. It reaches into the walls and through my spine, each note erasing another fragment of warmth. I feel the world flatten, like parchment pressed too thin. I whisper to no one. Through forgetting, we serve. The words taste hollow, but they fit the rhythm of the machine. Maybe that's why they made us learn them, to fill the silence left after memory's gone. My mouth keeps moving even after the words stop. I don't know if I'm praying or just practicing emptiness. The hum of the sanctum fades as I step away from the chair. My shadow bends across the floor, broken by the drainage grooves that snake between plates of iron. Every step leaves a faint print of moisture, proof that I am still something that breathes, even if I no longer remember how to live. I move toward the far wall where the light thins to dust. The vents exhale in slow, measured sighs. Each breath carries the scent of burned incense and human salt. There is a mural etched there, almost invisible, outlines of soldiers carved by hands that must have remembered more than I do now. The edges glisten where condensation collects, tracing halos around nameless heads. When I raise my hand to touch the first figure, my fingers find heat, not stone. The mural trembles. For an instant, the carving fills with motion, mud underfoot, sky bleeding fire, the roar of an engine screaming the Emperor's name. Then Corvin again, turning toward me, his lips shaping an order I can't hear. His eyes are calm, always calm. And then the image drains away, leaving only the taste of ozone. I press my palm to the wall until the ache in my hand grounds me. The memory's gone, but the feeling stays. The way command once sounded like trust. Tavik follows next. The mural's second figure holds a banner that frays in a wind I cannot feel. I remember the laughter that used to spill from him between volleys, the tune he hummed to keep fear at bay. For a moment, I think I can recall the words. They taste like home, something soft and unpermitted. When I try to hum, the sound that leaves my throat is static, thin, mechanical, foreign. It's then I realize what the sanction has done. It hasn't stolen the memories outright. It has replaced their language. I can still feel them, but only as sensations, heat, rhythm, weight. The mind can no longer translate. That is how obedience is perfected. The overhead lumen snaps once, plunging the room into half dark. In that flicker, I see both of them kneeling beside me, silhouettes in the glow, each a hollow vessel where identity used to live. Their presence is so close I could reach through the air and touch the outline of their armor. But if I do, I know the image will shatter, and I will forget them completely. So I sit instead, breathing with them in silence. Time fractures. I don't know how long I remain there. The chrono rune on the opposite wall pulses slower now, its glow dulled to amber. The machine within the sanctum begins to sing again, a low, rising chord, beautiful and unbearable. The sound passes through bone and thought alike, leaving me emptied but clean. When it ends, the world feels weightless. My heart stutters once and steadies. I can't recall what I was mourning. I whisper into the dim light, "If you hear me, brothers, stay a little longer." But the air gives no answer, and the mural's faces have already softened into the wall. The silence that follows feels like peace, or the imitation of it. The sanctum's hum follows me up the corridor like a tide that refuses to retreat. It settles into the gaps of my thoughts, patient, mechanical. The further I walk, the more it begins to sound like words. A chant beneath breath, repeating the same phrase I heard before the sanction began. Forget to be forgiven. I stop where the light falters and the floor changes from steel to stone. The temperature drops, and the air carries the cold damp of earth long buried. Here, the walls bear no seals, only scars. Scratches etched by fingernails maybe, or by memory itself trying to claw its way back. Something inside me stirs at the sight. Not recollection, not yet more like pressure behind the eyes. A thought pressing against the glass. I brace a hand against the wall and the hum spikes. The world flickers white, and I am there again. Mud to my knees, fire on the horizon. The sky torn in half by artillery glare. Corvin shouting coordinates into the vox while Tavik fires blind toward the smoke. The air thick with promethium, every breath tasting like coins and rain. I know this field. I've known it every night since they burned it from me. The enemy never came from across the trench. They came from the ground itself, our own fallen rising, bodies swollen, eyes glassed over with light that was wrong. Some prayed, some screamed, but none of us stopped firing. Then silence. The kind that follows orders you don't remember giving. I remember Corvin turning to me, the light of an exploding shell reflecting in his visor. "Close it down," he said. His voice was calm, certain, like faith, given form. "Seal the line before it spreads. Before it spreads." That's the part the sanction was meant to remove. I stumble back into the present, gasping. My fingers bleed where they've pressed too hard against the stone. The hum has gone quiet, replaced by the pulse of my own heartbeat. For a moment, I can see them both as they were after the order was carried out. Corvin's icon crushed under debris, Tavik's laughter gone silent. We did what faith demanded. We burned everything that moved. The administratum called it containment. The ordo called it purification. I called it betrayal. I sink to my knees, my hands tremble, and the memory slips through them like water. I try to hold on, to keep the shapes of their faces in the dark, but already they're thinning, dissolving at the edges. The sanction claws at me from the inside, erasing the coordinates, the names of the dead, the sound of the soil cracking under fire. Only two words remain, stubborn and clear. Close. It I whisper them to the cold air, to the ghosts that refuse to leave. Close it. I did. The chamber lights brighten for a heartbeat, as if acknowledging confession. Then the hum returns steady, hungry, waiting for the next thought to burn. The hum does not fade this time. It folds itself around me, an invisible tide pulling from every direction, steady and absolute. The lumen strips tremble with each pulse. I taste ozone again, and beneath it, the faint sweetness of sanctified oil. The scent triggers something sharp and buried. For a moment, I remember the smell of the world before the purge. Iron-wet air, soil thick with rain, the tang of smoke that wasn't holy. I see us digging. A shallow pit at the edge of the trench, the ground slick with blood and fuel. Corvin was beside me, his icon dangling from a snapped chain. Tavik stood watch, muttering a hymn out of tune. We weren't burying the dead, we were building the fire. The command had been clear: burn everything. Touched. We obeyed, because obedience was how you lived long enough to die properly. When the flames took hold, they didn't burn the way real fire does. They shone blue-white, color of plasma, color of cleansing. The air screamed. I can still see the silhouettes writhing in it. Tavik stopped humming and whispered, "They're ours." Corvin didn't answer. He just lifted his pistol and fired once into the pit. Mercy or faith, sometimes there's no difference. The memory spasms and shatters. I'm back in the corridor, knees slick with condensation, breath shallow. The after-image of that blue fire lingers behind my eyelids. It flickers whenever I blink. The machine in the walls thrums louder, like it senses the heresy of remembering. I press my forehead against the cold metal, whispering the catechism they taught us to calm the mind. The Emperor protects. The Emperor corrects. It doesn't help. Something else rises in its place, not words, but feeling. A surge of warmth, grief, given shape. I see Tavik turning toward me through the smoke, his hand outstretched, a grin that shouldn't exist in hell. "We did it," he said. His voice trembles now inside me, stripped of echo. We saved them. Saved who? I ask myself. The question opens a wound the sanction hasn't sealed. The corridor darkens at the edges. My vision swims. When I look down, the floor beneath me is no longer metal, it's mud again, viscous and alive. Each breath draws the stink of it deeper into my lungs. I feel Corvin's hand on my shoulder, weight and warmth, the steady anchor of command. "Seal it," he says once more. "If you don't, it spreads." Spread what? The thought forms, fragile and perfect, and then dissolves. I scream silently into the dark, but the sound won't leave my throat. The purge is awake inside me now, erasing as fast as I can remember. Words slide away, names unravel. Corvin's voice thins until it's nothing but the hum of the chamber. Again, I stagger forward, using the wall to steady myself. My fingertips leave smears of blood that steam faintly in the cold. The metal drinks them in without trace. The lights flare once, bright enough to blind, and in that moment of whiteness, I understand. The sanction didn't fail. It succeeded exactly as intended. I am remembering only long enough to confess. The corridor narrows again, and I feel the pressure of the walls drawing closer, like a throat preparing to swallow. Every step makes the air heavier. The hum that filled the sanctum has grown into a low chant, voices layered over machinery, the rhythm of 1,000 erased prayers. I pass a mirror set into the bulkhead. It's dull, almost blind, the kind of glass used for administrative audits, never meant to flatter, only to confirm existence. My reflection lags half a heartbeat behind my movement, eyes brighter than the rest of me, as though light remembers what I am forgetting. When I stare long enough, the glass begins to ripple. Behind my reflection, the battlefield wakes again. The sky folds into itself, grey rain turning black. I see the shape that came from the crater, tall, jointed, wrapped in heat shimmer. It moved like a man remembering how to walk, but every step peeled the world open. Its shadow stretched across our trench, and everything under it screamed. That's the truth they burned out of us. It wasn't corruption of flesh, it was corruption of faith. The thing wore the Emperor's visage, or what our minds made of it, and we obeyed it. We followed its command to cleanse, believing it divine. Only afterward did we see the eyes, too many, turning inward, hungry for devotion. That was what spread. I touch the mirror, and the image collapses back into light. My palm leaves a print, fogged and shaking. Beneath the noise in my skull, a new pulse begins soft, insistent. The sanction recognizes what I've recovered and moves to finish the job. I can feel it pulling the memory apart, strand by strand, unmaking the shape of what I just saw. I sink against the wall. The chant grows louder, syllables thick with static. I try to hold Corvin's order in my mouth, close it down. The words come out wrong, half lost to the static. I bite my tongue until blood floods the taste away. The pain steadies me. I whisper into the hum, "He was right." Corvin's voice answers in the back of my mind, the echo of a man I no longer know. "You did what faith demanded. Faith demanded forgetting. And here I am, fulfilling it one dying thought at a time." The lights dim to a dull red, the machinery breathing in rhythm with my pulse. I know now that if I let go, if I stop speaking their names, stop resisting, the rest will vanish cleanly. No pain, no guilt, just clarity. But the memory of that shape, that false divinity, still burns like a wound behind my eyes. I can't let it be erased completely. Someone must remember the lie, even if it's only until the next sleep. The hum sharpens. My reflection dissolves. I press my back to the wall and whisper both names again, softer this time, so the machine won't hear. Corvin, Tavik. The world shivers, then stills. The sanction waits for silence. The air in the corridor grows thick, like breath pressed into cloth. Every lumen flickers in unison, synchronized with the pulse in my neck. The sound beneath the floor, once distant, now feels inside my skull. The sanction has found me again. A pressure blooms behind my eyes, bright and soft, like light remembered. Thought fire reawakening. I drop to my knees. The machine doesn't need the chamber anymore. It is already inside me. The purge was never meant to end. It is a seed that burns when memory grows. The first flash comes gentle. Tavik's grin, rain streaking across his lenses, that off-key hum he used to keep rhythm in the mud. The image shakes, tries to hold, then collapses. His voice lingers an instant longer. "Don't stop humming, boss." I mouth the words without sound. Then Corvin, always composed, even when the world burned around him. He held the line not because of faith, but because someone had to. His hand on my shoulder, the weight of the cracked Aquila tapping against my armor. He didn't flinch when the false light came. He just said, "Seal it." Now that moment fractures, splitting down the middle like glass. In one shard, Corvin burns with the others. In the other, he turns and walks into the light that shouldn't exist. Both feel true, both hurt. The hum rises, the walls tremble. The sanctions chorus joins the noise, whispering through every vent. Purity through absence. Mercy through forgetting. I can feel neurons unravel, thoughts slipping into white static. I dig my nails into my palms to remember the feeling of skin. The pain is thin, fading fast. The blood doesn't even look red under this light. It's a dull brown, the color of dried devotion. The machine breathes again, this time through me. The floor hums. The air vibrates with prayer. I want to stand, but my legs no longer obey. Everything inside me is turning to light, unspooling like film left too long in the projector. Somewhere behind the static, a laugh ripples, a small cracked sound. Tavik's laugh. It cuts through the noise for half a heartbeat. I cling to it, shaping the sound in my throat until I feel my lungs ache. But even that slips away. The laughter becomes a hum. The hum becomes the machine. I try to speak their names. Only air comes out. My tongue feels heavy, as if carved from metal. My thoughts scatter like embers kicked through ash. I reach for Corvin's face and find only brightness. The sanction is merciful after all. It lets me understand exactly what I'm losing. The lights above me flare white. In that instant, I see everything. The false god rising from the crater, the command to cleanse, the faces of my brothers turning toward me, waiting for the order I gave. Then, the vision folds in on itself and burns to nothing. Silence. Only silence. For a moment, I almost believe I've been forgiven. The silence that follows is alive. It stretches between each heartbeat, like a veil trembling in the wind. I can hear the sanction working tiny sparks of thought, shorting out behind my eyes, little pieces of self flickering and going dark. It doesn't hurt anymore. That's the most terrifying part. I try to count the breaths I have left, but the numbers slip. They tumble over one another until they become a rhythm instead of meaning. I remember teaching Tavik that trick once, how to breathe through panic, how to turn fear into a cadence. Match the shot pattern, I told him. Let it steady you. The memory folds inward, dissolving mid-sentence. I crawl until my shoulder meets the cold of the wall. It feels solid, indifferent. My hands are shaking, but not from fear, something deeper, more mechanical, like the nerves are trying to write the names they can no longer hold. I smear the blood from my palms across the metal in slow arcs. When the light catches it, the shapes almost spell Corvin's name. The machine notices. A tone descends through the vents, low and resonant, and the letters begin to fade beneath a film of frost. The wall cleans itself of me. Compliance restored. The vox whispers. The words echo through the chamber, stripped of emotion, holy in their precision. I laugh, though it sounds wrong. My throat isn't built for laughter anymore. The sound comes out like a cough filtered through static. I think of Corvin's half smile whenever we survived something we shouldn't have. He used to say survival wasn't faith, it was debt. Every breath is owed, he told me once. I can't remember what I answered. The lumen above me flares, and for an instant the world is glass. I see Tavik again, young, reckless, the banner half burned in his hands. He turns, his mouth forming words I can't hear. The image freezes, then splits apart into motes of light that drift upward and vanish into the vent. Something inside me breaks with it. Not cleanly, not like a bone, more like paper torn underwater. My thoughts scatter, pages floating out of reach. I try to catch one. It's blank. The hum deepens until it becomes a heartbeat that isn't mine. I know what comes next. I've seen it in others. The mind collapses inward, memory by memory, until only command remains. I press my forehead to the floor, whispering into the metal. Just let me keep them a little longer. The machine answers in silence. Then, a pulse of warmth slides through my spine. It feels almost tender. Obedience, rewritten as comfort. I exhale, and the chamber breathes with me. For the first time since the war, I feel weightless. But weightless isn't the same as free. The warmth lingers longer than it should. It moves through my chest in slow circles, the way a prayer turns endlessly through the mouth of someone who no longer knows what the words mean. The sanction hums deeper now, not outside me, but inside. It is the pulse beneath my pulse, the rhythm that will outlive my own. I rest my head against the floor. The metal vibrates faintly, a living thing pretending to be still. It's the same hum we heard before every bombardment, the one that traveled through the trench walls seconds before the shells fell. I remember how Tavik used to smile at it. "Hear that?" he'd say. "That's the Emperor tuning the world. Now the world tunes itself to silence." The lumen above me fades through shades of white and grey, bleeding slowly into red. My reflection stares back from the polished steel plate beside the drain. My pupils shimmer with that same color the flames had on the field, the color of erasure. I wonder if Corvin looked like this before the light took him, if he had time to know what he was losing. My hands are steady now. I can't decide whether it's peace or paralysis. I lift, one slowly, palm up, and watch the skin shift under the light. The lines are foreign, drawn in someone else's script. The sigil burned into my forearm still glows faintly, the mark of excision. The Medicae called it the Emperor's signature, proof that my mind had been made pure. I trace the edges with a trembling finger and whisper, "You didn't sign my brothers." The hum pauses. For an instant, the air feels expectant, like the chamber itself is listening, and then memory slides through the gap fast, uninvited, merciless. I am back in the trench again, kneeling beside the comms relay. Corvin's hand rests on my shoulder, grounding me as always. "They won't understand," he says quietly, voice steady beneath the shellfire. "But you will do it anyway." Tavik crouches beside the Vox unit, grin crooked behind the rebreather mask. "If we live, drinks on me," he says, and the static swallows his laugh. "We never had those drinks. We never left that field." The light comes again, not from above, but from within the mud itself, as though the ground has decided to burn. Shapes emerge from the fire, tall and wrong, each one bearing the outline of what faith taught us to worship. Their voices overlap into one unbearable sound, praise turned backward, holiness devouring itself. Corvin's hand tightens. His eyes are fixed on me. "Close it," he says again. "Only this time, I understand. We fired into our own, into the ones who still prayed." The heat from that memory burns through the present. I can smell scorched air again, hear the screams curdled by reverence. I press my fists to my ears, but the sound is inside me now. My heart pounds out a rhythm that matches the chant of the machine, purity through absence, mercy through forgetting. I try to whisper the truth, but language collapses in my mouth. The sanction translates even that replaces confession with compliance. The pain that should come with remembering turns to calm. The way, cold turns to numbness before frostbite sets in. I feel the name slipping again. Tavik first, the syllables thinning until they're just a hum. Corvin follows, leaving behind only the pressure of his hand, a ghost weight on my shoulder. I clutch at it, desperate, and the machine responds with another wave of warmth that dissolves my grip entirely. The world begins to tilt. The edges blur, colors draining until all that's left is light and sound. I can no longer tell if my eyes are open. I see them both standing before me, two soldiers without faces, armor burning away into smoke. Tavik's banner turns to ash between his hands. Corvin lifts his pistol again, just as he did in the trench. He points it not at the enemy this time, but at me. I don't flinch. I understand now. This is the last order. When the shot comes, there's no sound, only light, brilliant, endless, kind. It fills everything, even the hollow places. For one breath I feel clean, as though forgiveness is nothing more than forgetting at the right speed. The hum quiets. The machine exhales. The chamber is still. I am on my back again, staring at the red lumen that never stops flickering. The taste of metal on my tongue, the smell of burned ozone, the memory already fading like ink in rain. I know I should feel sorrow, but the emotion refuses to form. I can only think one thought, looping endlessly through the ruins of language. They deserve to be remembered. I say it once, softly, not knowing whether I speak aloud or only dream the sound. The chamber answers with stillness. Then a faint hiss, the sound of a valve closing, sealing another obedient mind. It is done. I close my eyes. The warmth inside me steadies into rhythm. My heartbeat slows until it matches the sanctum's pulse. Indistinguishable. I imagine the machine sighing in contentment. It has reclaimed its errant fragment. All that remains is quiet. Holy, merciful quiet. The warmth hasn't gone, not yet. It lingers in the bones, slow and reluctant, as if even the machine mourns the end of its work. I lie still beneath the dim light, watching dust move like smoke through the air. It feels wrong that I can see it all. After so much unmaking, the world should be black, but it isn't. It glows faintly, as though memory itself has become a kind of light, refusing to die. The servitor finished its rituals hours ago, or maybe minutes. Time bleeds strangely now. It left the smell of machine oil and sanctified ash hanging in the room. The rune above my heart still burns, faint but steady, like a brand remembering purpose. Every few breaths I catch myself waiting for another command, another voice to direct this hollow body. None comes. I try to rise. My knees lock halfway, then yield. The air feels heavier than gravity, as if it presses against thought itself. When I stand fully, the edges of the world tremble. It's not pain, just instability, like existence struggling to reassert itself around what's missing. Across the chamber, the lumen casts long shadows that quiver when I breathe. The shadows look almost human, tall, lean, disciplined. For a moment I think the light has remembered my brothers for me. but when I step closer they blur, flatten and fade. Still, I whisper their names to the shapes before they vanish. Corvin, Tavik, 2 prayers already dissolving. The echo of their names ripples through the air and dies. I expect guilt to follow, but it doesn't. The sanction's mercy is efficient. It takes away even the shape of grief. What's left behind is calm, smooth and featureless. The soul as polished metal. I walk to the far wall where the purity seals hang in precise rows. They flutter gently in the vent's breath, parchment whispering against parchment. Each seal bears a fragment of scripture verses of forgetting, oaths of service renewed through absence. I trace one with my finger. The ink flakes away beneath my touch, leaving only the faint outline of the aquila beneath. That, at least, endures. Somewhere beyond the sanctum a chime rings. The sound is soft, ceremonial. A signal to the attendants, perhaps, that another soul is ready to return to duty. I wonder if they will recognize me. My name must still exist in their records, but it will belong to a different man now, a cleaner one, without shadows in his thoughts. I reach for the doorway. The metal frame hums faintly, responding to my presence. Beyond it, the corridor is bright, too bright, walls polished to mirror sheen. The first step forward feels unreal, as if the body moves but the self remains behind. I pause in the threshold, glancing back at the restraint slab. The grooves in the metal still hold traces of moisture where my hands once lay. The stains glimmer like frost in the light. I wonder if the next occupant will feel them, if some small trace of my defiance will whisper through the steel. The thought almost makes me smile. Almost. The hum deepens again, a familiar heartbeat in the walls. It follows me as I step into the corridor, steady and low. I walk slowly, hand brushing along the cold metal. Every few steps, a new lumen ignites overhead, guiding the path forward. It feels choreographed, as if I'm not walking out but being led somewhere I've already been. At the corridor's end, a door opens with a sigh of air. I catch the scent of incense, faint and clean. Beyond lies another chamber wider, filled with light that doesn't hurt. I hesitate on the threshold, not out of fear, but because part of me still expects someone to follow. Some echo of laughter, the rhythm of boots, the murmur of a voice saying, "Hold the line." Nothing comes, only silence, only light. I step inside. The new chamber is all angles and quiet. Light hangs from the ceiling in shallow bowls, each one filled with a glow the color of watered milk. It gentles the edges of the world until even the machines look kind. Someone has arranged a basin on a low stand, steam lifting in thin ribbons from its surface. A folded robe rests beside it, linen white with a narrow strip of gold thread at the collar. The thread catches the light the way wet wire does, beautiful, functional, without sentiment. I dip my hands into the basin. The water is warmer than I expect, almost human. For a heartbeat I taste iron on my tongue and think of a floodlit trench, of rain that smelled like coins. The thought arrives complete, then crumbles. All that remains is warmth and the motion of my fingers. I scrub at the faint stain along my sleeve, the one that once tried to be a name. The fabric comes clean before I am ready. Footsteps approach, measured and soft, arriving without haste. An attendant enters, a man with a clerk's posture and a monk's patience. No rank marks his robe. Only a small seal hangs at his throat, stamped with the sigil of forgetting. He bows slightly, palms together, as if he fears to disturb whatever thin order holds me upright. "Absolved," he says, voice even, sincere. "Your clarity is noted. There is nothing in me to answer with." I incline my head. The gesture satisfies him. He sets a small package on the table, a ration square, a vial of clear liquid, a narrow charm of pressed tin shaped like the aquila. The charm is light enough to be meaningless. He places it in my palm with care, as though it might bruise. "For post-sanction steadiness," he explains. "Hydration, caloric correction, devotional anchor. You may wear the token if you wish. It reminds the body to align with the soul." I close my fingers around the metal. It warms quickly, taking the heat of my skin as if that were a prayer. The attendant steps back, studying my face the way a surveyor studies a horizon. "Do you recall distress?" he asks. The question is gentle, not testing, as if we are both custodians of the same empty vessel. I search the new quiet for the shape of distress. There is a seam where it might have been. I can feel the thread, but not the fabric. I shake my head. "Good," he says, and relief loosens his shoulders. "We prefer clean transitions." He gestures toward a bench. I sit. He begins to speak, not as if to instruct, but to thread a ritual between us. "You may experience minor echoes," he intones. "Phantom impressions, scent, light, rhythm. They are not memories. They are the mind's way of honoring the work done upon it. Breathe through them. They will pass." I breathe as told. The air tastes like candle smoke and polished brass. An echo arrives anyway, the weight of a hand on my shoulder, firm, steady, certain, and a flicker of laughter, so brief it might be a defect in the light. I keep breathing until even the defect seems repaired. The attendant watches, patient as stone. "When you are steady, a clerk will escort you to billet assignment. Your record remains. Your duties continue. Your burdens are lifted." He pauses, eyes softening. "You have served the Emperor very well." The words should fill me. They settle instead, like fine dust, even, inescapable. I nod again. He bows and departs, taking his careful warmth with him. The door sighs closed. I am alone with the basin, the robe, and the charm cooling in my hand. I dress without hurry. The robe's fabric is obedient. It drapes exactly where it is told. When I fasten the collar, the gold thread touches my throat with the faintest prick, as if reminding me of the absence beneath. I hang the tin aquila from the neck cord they've left on the table. It rests against the compliance rune above my heart and feels like a coin placed on a closed eye. A new chime lower than the last rolls through the corridor outside. The floor vibrates a little, the way a railing does when a heavy train passes far below. Somewhere, another sanction begins, or ends. My body answers by standing. The motion is smooth and simple, born of instruction. I pause only long enough to glance at the basin one more time. Steam still lifts from it, carrying a warmth that smells faintly of clean metal and something like bread. The door opens when I step toward it. A clerk waits beyond, young, his hair cropped to regulation. His eyes are the soft brown of old wood. He smiles like a man who believes entirely in the usefulness of his days. "Comrade," he says, a respectful address that belongs to no rank and everyone. "If you are ready." I try the word on the inside of my mouth. Ready. It fits, though I cannot say why. I follow him into the corridor, where the light is brighter but not unkind. We walk in silence. Every dozen steps a purity seal hangs from the wall like a drooping flower, parchment edges feathered by the breath of vents. The seal's ink wavers as we pass, lines glistening like fresh script. At the first junction we turn right. The clerk's stride is steady, ceremonial. He keeps just enough distance to avoid the intimacy of companionship, just close enough to be impossible to lose. We pass a side door. Through a narrow pane of glass, I glimpse another chamber, a restraint chair, empty, a servitor wiping the rails with a cloth, a shallow pile of ash in the pan below, cooling to a uniform grey. The sight should disturb me. It registers only as order. "Your billet is close," he says, glancing down at his slate. "There is a window there." Some find the prospect of a view conducive to equilibrium. A window. The word draws something like curiosity from a place that might once have been hope. I hold it carefully, like a match in wind, and keep walking. The corridor turns one final time and opens into a space wider than I imagined could exist within a ship. A dome of glass stretches overhead, latticed with iron ribs and prayer etchings that catch the starlight. Beyond the glass, the void lies patient and immense, the color of old ink. The light of distant suns spills through the engraved litanies until every letter shines like a candle left for the dead. The clerk halts at the threshold. "Observation deck," he murmurs, as if naming a relic. "Your billet lies within. You'll find a cot, a locker, a devotional terminal. You're to remain until the next embarkation." He bows slightly, then leaves, his footsteps fading into the rhythm of the ship's pulse. The door seals behind him with a whisper that sounds too much like farewell. I stand alone beneath the dome, and for a moment the view steals the breath from my lungs. I have seen battlefields lit by orbital fire, seen skies torn apart by bombardment, but I have never seen stars like these, calm, innumerable, cold. They seem to watch rather than shine. Each one might hold the light of a world I've forgotten. The cot waits by the wall, a strip of metal with a thin blanket folded with military precision. I sit on its edge. The fabric sighs beneath my weight. Across from me, the devotional terminal hums softly, a gentle sound, the voice of a machine trying to pray. Its screen glows, with text already prepared. Enter affirmation. Below, the prompt blinks, expectant, patient. I stare at it until the light of the stars reflects in the glass, turning the words into a mirror. My fingers hover over the keys. They remember the motion of confession even if they no longer know what to confess. I type slowly, one word at a time. I am whole. The terminal accepts the phrase, chimes approval, and erases it. A new prompt appears. Repeat. The process is endless, an obedience that renews itself. I let my hands fall away from the machine. The hum of the ship fills the silence between us. It is the same frequency as the sanction's song, yet softer now, like a heartbeat learning mercy. Something stirs at the edge of hearing two voices, distant, indistinct. One laughs, the other answers with quiet authority. The sound might be a flaw in the ventilation system, but it carries warmth that no machine could forge. For an instant, the air smells of mud and cordite, and rain. I lift my head. The vision vanishes before my eyes open fully, leaving only the stars and the faint ache behind my ribs. I stand and approach the glass. My reflection walks with me, transparent against the constellations. I raise my hand, and beyond the reflection the void seems to answer two faint lights crossing paths, one steady, one flickering. I pretend they are Corvin and Tavik, still holding the line somewhere memory cannot reach. A low voice from the terminal interrupts the thought. Lights to rest cycle. The dome's illumination dims until the stars alone remain. Their glow lays thin silver across my hands. The ship exhales, a long mechanical sigh, and settles into the rhythm of travel. I realize I am swaying slightly, matching that rhythm, my body remembering the march of regiments I can no longer name. The silence thickens but does not suffocate. It feels earned, deliberate. I close my eyes and let the starlight press against my lids until it becomes warmth. Somewhere in the dark, the devotional terminal hums one last phrase. Service resumes at dawn. I lie back on the cot, the blanket drawn over my chest. The rune above my heart throbs once in recognition, a small pulse of light through cloth. I do not pray. There is nothing left to ask for. The stars will keep the watch. The ship will remember my obedience. Between one breath and the next, I think I hear a whisper, a single voice carried through the metal. It might be my own, or theirs. The words are simple, steady, final. I serve without memory, but my soul still salutes.